Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome to the Post Up with David Grubb right here on Boot Crew Media. I, of course, am your host, David Grubb. Thank you for joining me. And while you're here, go ahead and hit the like button. And if you aren't a subscriber, you can click on that as well. Plenty to talk about today, as the New Orleans Pelicans have now won 3 games in a row after beating the Utah Jazz 129-118 on Thursday night. Pels kicking off a 6-game road trip. They will play the Jazz again on Saturday before they head to LA to face the Clippers on Sunday and the Lakers on Tuesday. This is just the second 3-game winning streak for the Pelicans this season. Of course, they won 5 in a row back in December. By all accounts, the New Orleans Pelicans, who are now 10 games back of the Clippers for 10th place in the Western Conference standings, are serious about making a run for the play-in. By beating the Jazz last night, the Pelicans did secure their first non-losing month since April of 2024. And if they win on Saturday, they can have their first winning month since March of that same year. The next 5 games will be a big factor for the Pelicans if they're going to start this chase for the play-in for real. And let's just presuppose that it's going to take 33 wins. It may be more, but we're just going to, for argument's sake, we're going to pretend that 33 games, 33 wins is what it's going to take in order for the New Orleans Pelicans to grab the 10th spot. If that's the case, then the Pelicans have to win 15 of their final 22 games. So we're going to look at those games and see if they have a reasonable shot of getting there, right? So let's start with this current road trip. The Pelicans should sweep the Jazz, who are openly tanking at this point and basically daring the NBA to do something about it. So they should sweep the Jazz, extend the win streak to 4. The back-to-back with the Clippers is the really pivotal game for me in this road trip. Because in my opinion, I think that this game, it's the one time in this where the Pelicans will be at a real big rest disadvantage on this trip. So they get the back-to-back with the Clippers. The Clippers have lost 3 in a row, but they aren't playing tonight or Saturday. So they're going to have 2 days of rest, and the Pelicans will be coming in off of a late night against the Jazz and then playing again the next night against the Clippers. The New Orleans only lost by 2 to the Clippers the first time they played this season. The Pelicans are 3-6 this season on the second night of a back-to-back, and just 1-4 on the road. So that game right there, winning that game is huge if this road trip is really going to be something that propels them towards the final stretch of the season. The Lakers, of course, look really dysfunctional right now, but they have continued to dominate the Pelicans no matter what form they have taken. They've won 8 in a row against New Orleans and 7 in a row at home. LeBron James, Luka Doncic, DeAndre Ayton have been 3 of the biggest Pelican killers throughout this team's history. Doncic and Ayton have combined to average 49 points, 20 rebounds, 11 assists, 3 steals, and 3 blocks in the 3 games against the Pelicans so far this year. LeBron James played once against the Pelicans. He had 30 points in 33 minutes, closed that game out in New Orleans the last time he saw the Pelicans. And then Austin Reeves all of a sudden has jumped into that conversation as well. He's averaging 32 points in the 2 games that he played against New Orleans this year. So you got 3 guys who are averaging over 30, basically 30 against the Pelicans in Doncic, LeBron, and Austin Reeves. And then you got another guy giving you 20 and 10 in DeAndre Ayton against the Pelicans, and Ayton has had a consistently good career against the Pelicans, if not against anybody else. He has played well time and time again when he sees the New Orleans Pelicans. We'll see again if these lineup changes that James Borrego is making, how do they impact these games coming up? But the Lakers have just been a huge challenge for the Pelicans defensively. Pelicans have been better as of late defensively, but can they do better again on this trip? They have to outrun the Lakers and take care of the basketball. And we're going to talk about the turnovers again in a minute. And I know there are people who think I've been harping on turnovers, and I'm going to tell you why. It is not something to degrade Dejounte Murray, but it's something that I'm going to discuss that shows why the turnovers themselves, not necessarily a player, but the issue of the turnovers, are a concern and need to be addressed. Um, so if the Pelicans can escape Los Angeles with those 2 wins, then they could really be starting to pick up some momentum. Because then you go into Sacramento. The Kings have lost 8 of their last 10. The Pelicans nearly beat them by 30 earlier this season. So you feel like you've definitely got an advantage there against the Kings. And then the last game against Phoenix is another big test. The Pelicans are 0-3 against the Suns this season. Devin Booker has been a consistent nightmare for the Pelicans to guard. He's averaging 26 points against the Pelicans for his career and has the single game record for most points scored in a game against New Orleans with 58. The Pelicans, as a franchise, have given up 8 50-point games. Devin Booker has 3 of them. So I think it's reasonable to suggest, and I'm going to try to be as reasonable as possible. And what's up, Jonathan? How you doing today? I'm trying to be as reasonable as possible and say we're going to give the Pelicans 4-1 in that stretch. I'm going to give them 4-1 over the next 5 games. Okay. Then the Pelicans come back to face the Washington Wizards. You get Toronto in Brandon Ingram's return to the Smoothie King Center, a visit to Houston in the middle of those 5 games before coming back to take on the Mavericks and the Clippers. So I'll be optimistic again and say in that 5-game stretch, I'll give them 4-1 one more time. I'll say the loss is at Houston because the Pelicans again just have had trouble matching up against the Rockets, their physicality and their height up front. That's just been a problem. So we'll count that as the loss. They should beat Washington at home. I'll give them the win over the Raptors at home because I don't think the Raptors are as good as their record suggests. If they weren't in the East, they wouldn't be great. Okay. So I think they can beat both the Wizards and Raptors. The Houston game would be a loss. Then you come back. You beat Dallas, certainly, who is openly tanking, unless Najee Marshall and Cooper Flagg go off on you, which is possible. And then you get the Clippers again, who I'll give the Pelicans the advantage there. So 4-1, we'll say 4-1 again. The next 5 of that is really brutal. And this is the stretch that could decide whether the Pelicans have that chance. Those next 5 games, because if you go in 8-2, now you have 5 games where you finish a back-to-back against the Clippers. Then you go on. Then you get the Cavs at home, who James Harden, Donovan Mitchell. You've not had a lot of great luck against the Cavs in general. Then you go on the road to take the Knicks and the Pistons, the 2 best teams in the East. I don't think you're winning those games on the road. And then you come back home. Then you're also on the road to face the Raptors. Let's say you split against the Raptors. So if you lose the road games, where you're going to be heavy underdogs in all 3 of those road games, then let's say you're 2-3 at that stretch. That puts you at 10-5 with 7 games left to play. Those final 7 games will be really interesting. New Orleans closes the season series at home against the Rockets and then plays 4 of their last 6 on the road. Okay. Portland will likely be playing for something. That's going to be a tough game on the road. The Kings are tougher at home, but again, the Kings will not be playing for anything at that point. And then the Pelicans come back home for 2 against the Magic and the Jazz. Orlando has won 8 in a row against the Pelicans. Paolo Banchero regularly kills the Pelicans. And then the Jazz are the Jazz. Pelicans end the season on the road against Boston and Minnesota, which is a very weird road trip to have to go home, then to Boston, and then finish the season at Minnesota. Very strange road trip. Who knows what those games will mean then? They'd have to win 5 of those last 7. Okay, 5 of those last 7. It's possible, that the Pelicans could get those 15 wins in 22 games. It is possible. We'll have to see how probable, right? We'll have to see how probable it is. It is certainly possible. I will acknowledge that fully. You could timestamp it, whatever. I am saying that as of today, the Pelicans have a chance to get to 33 wins. I don't know if that's going to be enough. The Clippers are at 27 wins right now. The Clippers are at 27. Pelicans are 10 games back. That is not easy to make up. It's not easy to make up. So the Clippers, at the very least, don't want to lose. They may have given away James Harden and Zubac, but at the very least, they don't want to lose some extra money by playing those games at home or playing a game in the play-in tournament. So it's some extra money there. So I like that chase for that spot, I still think could be difficult. But the Pelicans have an outside chance if they are really serious about this. But there are some things that will be challenges, and we'll talk about those as we get deeper into the remainder of the season. Now, Saddiq Bey, and I'm sorry, I misspelled. I forgot to put two D's. I put two A's. I had one of them dyslexia moments, and that's my fault. And I apologize to Saddiq if he ever sees this for me misspelling his name. But Saddiq Bey, 41 points last night in the win. 42 points, excuse me. His jersey's number 41. 42 points for the Pelicans. The 50, I believe, I want to say it's like the 55th 40-point game in Pelicans history, something like that. But Saddiq Bey is having a phenomenal season. This was a guy who came in and was viewed as you hoped that he would give you around what he had given you for his career, like 13 points, 5 boards. You hoped he would be a decent Najee Marshall replacement. Like that's what the goal was, that he would be a consistent 6-man for the Pelicans. I think that's what fans were hoping. Coming off the ACL injury, missing an entire season, the expectations couldn't have been much higher than that. He started off kind of slow in October. But since then, it's been just consistently better month by month. And now, since January, you've seen what Saddiq Bey has been. Giving you 20 points per game consistently, particularly since joining the starting lineup. He's the Pelicans' best post scorer and one of the most efficient post scorers in the league, particularly as a wing. He's one of the best post scorers that you get. His clutch performances, and I just will go with this. He's been the best Pelican by far in the clutch. You go through his clutch ranks, particularly this season. He's number 1 in points, number 2 in field goal percentage. Only Herb Jones better than him in the fourth quarter. Second in 3-point percentage to Trey Murphy. He's shooting 86% from the free throw line. And the only categories where he's not number 1, essentially, or right behind that, the rest of the way is assists. He has not been big assists in the clutch. So what? He's been scoring, right? And then he hasn't had a bunch of steals. So what? In February, he leads the Pelicans basically in every category across the board. He's upped his scoring from about 2 points to almost 4 points in the clutch. His clutch shooting percentage in the month of February is at 80%. 80% just in February. So at the most critical points of the game, he's shooting 80% in those clutch minutes and 50% from 3 in the clutch during February. 100% at the free throw line. He's doing all the things that he's supposed to do, and he's been an overall positive player as far as his plus minus as well. So earlier in the season, for the season, still a negative, but in February, as the Pelicans have improved, Saddiq Bey has been a huge part of that in the clutch. You look at his numbers overall, and in February, he's tied for 12th in the NBA in field goal percentage. In points with Jokic and Tyrese Maxey. And no one is scoring more than him on a higher field goal percentage in the league in February in the clutch. So, and he's tied for 4th in fourth quarter 3-point percentage. He's just been so elite there. Why has it been so good? And I got to give Schmidt a lot of credit. He wrote an entire piece on Substack about Saddiq Bey and why he's been able to step into this position and assume this. So if you want to go check that piece out again on Substack, Schmidt in the know, you can go ahead and check that out. A lot of detail there about Saddiq Bey and what he's been doing this season. But things are evident that everybody can notice is that his physical mismatch in the mid-range and in the post. He can take smaller forwards off the dribble. He is able to score in the post. He can back down, and he has post moves. You cannot sag off of him because he is a credible three-point shooter. He's having a hot February, but he is a credible three-point shooter across this season. He takes shots from all over the court. He's able to put the ball on the floor, pull up. He's able to give you second chance opportunities as well. And he's been a leader for this team on the court. So just the contributions that Saddiq has had on both ends of the floor have been high level. Borrego certainly, number one, by making him starter, but then by running the offense essentially through Saadiq Bey, he is telling you who he trusts the most. Like, the actions are showing who the players trust and who the coach trusts. And Saddiq Bey has paid back that trust in with plenty of return. Plenty of return. The Pelicans have done a good job in creating matchups for Saddiq Bey to take advantage of, either by switching or either by giving him very easy ways to either pass it directly to him in the post or isolate him, allow him to dribble, and then decide to post up. So you're seeing those good things. With Dejounte figuring things out, and the offense is better with Dejounte on the floor, that's no question. And Zion playing good, efficient basketball lately. Saddiq, even without Trey, Saddiq has had this opportunity to step into this void and be the perimeter threat that the Pelicans need. On a team that does not have a lot of high basketball IQ players, that makes Saddiq stand out more. Okay. Pelicans typically, when they get in trouble, it's because it looks like they just don't know what they're doing. Guys are just occupying spaces. The ball stops moving. That doesn't happen as much when Saddiq is involved, not just on the floor, but involved. And that there has been this consistent carryover. And I think he has assumed he is not necessarily as effusive as Najee Marshall, and maybe not necessarily as athletic, in the open floor as Najee Marshall. But he provides that stabilizing toughness and physicality that no one else on the perimeter is able to provide. Most of the Pelicans players rely on simply their quickness. That is their biggest asset. You would say that's Jeremiah Fears' biggest asset, Dejounte Murray's biggest asset, Trey Murphy, outside of his shooting, obviously. But his quickness is what he relies on, his ability to separate Herb Jones as a defender, his quickness. Strength is a big part of Saddiq Bey's game. So we want to see, how that continues to progress, particularly down the stretch. To understand that you have someone to throw the ball into besides Zion Williamson and who can make his free throws. It will be really interesting to see how this continues to develop once Trey Murphy comes back as well. Because if you have a Dejounte Murray who's been playing in the fourth quarters, in those clutch situations, has played well. You have Trey Murphy who can knock down shots. You have Zion Williamson who can take people one-on-one. And you have Saddiq Bey who can take people at all three levels. The Pelicans can be a much more dangerous team in the clutch in trying to secure these 15 more wins that at the very least, that they're going to need. On top of that, you add in his contract value and the fact that he is eligible for an extension this offseason. What is Saddiq's value, both to the Pelicans and around the league? Because the New Orleans Pelicans front office still has to make some changes. And the probability is that they will not make significant changes because their their publicly reported commitment to their core that seems to indicate that there will not be significant changes. But if there are changes, if you are still trying to get back into next year's draft, if you are still trying to get rid of any of your bad contract assets, Saddiq Bey is probably now your most valuable asset because of the length of his contract, the cost of his contract, his age at 27. He's going to attract core player money. For the Pelicans, the question is, do you think that this is sustainable? And do you have a plan for him going forward? Because when we talk about the roster development next season, what does that starting lineup look like? If you are deciding that you're going to find a center and allow a point guard, or if Dejounte is your point guard next year, let's say if that's the case, you find a veteran center, you keep Dejounte at point, you're still starting Trey, you're still starting Zion. Let's say you go back to Herb Jones and keep him, if he's still on the roster next year, the numbers still say that Herb is your most impactful offensive and defensive player. And I can talk about that in a minute, but that's not the point of this. If Saddiq goes back to the bench, are you now saying he's your number one scoring option off the bench? Are you building your bench around him with Fears going into year 2, Queen going into year 2? What does the rest of your bench look like? Are you putting some more pieces down there for that bench, which has been very good as of late? And we're going to close the show talking about how good the bench has actually been. But that having a plan, you can't just decide to re-sign Dejounte because you need to get money together. The Pelicans do not have a lot of space next season as currently constructed. So you do have to create some cap space. And then you've got to decide what his value is. Are you going to maximize the offer that you're going to give him? How many years are you going to offer him? And again, do you have a long-term role? I'm not saying those things can't happen, but I'm saying those are the questions. And we'll have to see how that develops. Dejounte Murray, over these last 2 games, has been very impactful. We'll start there. He has been incredibly impactful on the offensive end. The defense has been good when he's been on the floor. His offensive profile right now is where you want it to be. He's taking the shots, outside of his 3 points, 3-point percentage. He's taking shots where he needs to take them. His effective field goal percentage is pretty good. His true shooting percentage is pretty good as well. But the difficulty for Dejounte has not been his offense other than the problem of turnovers. And people are like, Grub, why are you so worried about Dejounte's turnovers? It's 2 games back. Well, in the first 2 games, he's got 12 assists and 11 and a half 11 turnovers, 12 assists and 11 turnovers. That ain't good, okay? That ain't good. And in both of the games when his turnovers picked up was at points in the game where the other team was able to get back into it. Golden State, you could lose on any other night the amount of turnovers that the Pelicans put up. And they have 35 turnovers over these last 2 games. 35. And 11 of those belong to Dejounte. This season, when the Pelicans have committed 17 or more turnovers, as they have in these last 2 games, they're only 4-10. 2 of those wins being the last 2 games. All those wins coming against losing teams. Okay? Their record since Dejounte joined the Pelicans, he has 14 of his 32 games with the Pelicans have been with 4 or more turnovers. In those 14 games, the Pelicans are 4-10. And you could say, oh, that's not a giant sample size. But compared to his career, it's a huge concern. Can he turn it around? That's the question, and he has to do that. Like I said, 14 out of 33 games with the Pelicans. That is 42% of his games. He's had at least 4 turnovers. For his career, that average had been 17.2%. In all the other seasons of his career, 17.2%. Since joining the Pelicans, it's been at 42.4%. Yes, there are mitigating factors. Yes, he's had injuries. Yes, he went through a tough year last year personally. Yes, all of those things are true. But what's also true is that he's turned the ball over a lot. Will it get better? I cannot presuppose that because the evidence has not shown that. So I will not presuppose. All I can state is that right now it's a concern. That's the only thing I can say is that it is a concern, and it should be a concern. When 42% of your games, you are turning the ball over 4 more times at that position, that is not good. You can have some high turnover games. That can happen. But when you're doing it nearly half the time, that's not good. The Dejounte Murray that we have gotten since he arrived in New Orleans, just to give you a profile, and again, this is not to say that things will not get better. Go check out the Propels talk if you missed it, where I said there that most of the scenarios involving Dejounte, 3 out of 4 are positive scenarios. Okay? 3 out of those 4 scenarios are positive scenarios. But I'm just trying to convey that this has been an issue since he joined the Pelicans. Since he joined the Pelicans. Before he got injured last year, that entire stretch of games when he was healthy, it was a nightly problem. These high turnover games. And when you look at what he's done, the amount of games, again, he has more 4 turnover games in 33 games, almost twice as many. I mean, about 2 more, that Jeremiah Fears has in 50 plus games. That's an issue. Since he's been in New Orleans, his per 100 possession numbers are basically the same. His scoring numbers are the same. His assist numbers, he's basically averaging a triple-double per 100 possessions. The turnovers have been the big difference. That is the biggest difference. His three-point shooting has not been great since he came to New Orleans either, but I'm not as concerned about that because I never considered Dejounte Murray a volume three-point shooter. The big thing he has to do is take care of the basketball. This year, since he came to the Pelicans, his win shares per 48 have fallen off a cliff. He's averaging 0.007 win shares per 48. His career was 0.091. That's a huge drop-off. He's playing closer statistically since he joined New Orleans to what Jeremiah Fears is doing overall than he is playing like the player that you saw in the previous 3 years in Atlanta and San Antonio. Can he get better with time? We shall see. But remember, he's also coming off the Achilles injury, has not played in a year plus. And these will be high-pressure situations to get these wins. If the Pelicans are going to make a legitimate run at the play-in, which I just said is a possibility, it ain't guaranteed. It's not going to be easy. If it's a possibility, the one thing that the Pelicans have done such a great job of to give themselves more of an opportunity this month and in other games since James Borrego took over is cut down the turnovers. But these last 2 games, a lot of turnovers against some pretty poor defensive teams. So the Pelicans need to fix that, right? So we're going to close today. We're going to talk about the bench, and then I'll get to some of the questions that we got. But before we close, I want to talk about the bench, and I got a lot to talk about when it comes to the bench. The Pelicans bench has been amazing compared to what they've done this season overall. The improvement has just been staggering. And I just want to go through the numbers with you. All right. We're going to check out these numbers for the bench. These are the rankings for the Pelicans bench this season. And I want you to pay attention at how bad they were to start the year. They have been able to score points. They were in the top 11 at the start of the season. But the points are not the biggest thing that indicates success. December, I want you to pay special note in December. That's when Zion Williamson came off the bench a lot. So the points were at their highest. The field goal percentage was at its best. Three-point percentage was pretty high. Again, folks tend to shoot better when they're playing off of Zion. Free throw percentage was pretty good. And the offensive rating was its highest. But in February, you can see it right there. The Pelicans are 8th in the NBA in defensive rating. Their bench is 8th in defensive rating in February. Net is 6th overall, and plus minus they're 6th. Compared to the season, in that bottom row, their season numbers. What you have seen this month has been a huge amount of growth. How does that look statistically? Again, you look at this month. Don't worry about the points. That means your starters are doing better. The Pelicans, again, are 5-4 this month and have a chance to get their first winning month in almost 2 years. So if you take that into effect, I'm not worried about the points. But field goal percentages start to tick back up after a really bad January. The three-point percentage is almost as high as it was in December at its peak. The free throw percentage is not great, but here's where it gets good. You see the Pelicans now have a positive net rating from their bench the first time this season. Their plus minus is at 2.4. Okay, there are currently 17 teams in the NBA. 17 teams in the NBA that have positive bench plus minus overall this season. 17. Only one of those teams has a losing record. That's the Charlotte Hornets, who are one of the hottest teams in the NBA right now. Only one of those teams has a losing record. Of the bottom 13 teams, only one team with a winning record has a negative bench plus minus or a negative bench net rating. That's the Orlando Magic, and they are 18th overall. So having a good bench is an integral part of success in the NBA. You have to have a good bench. Okay. The Pelicans have finally figured out in what's been the biggest changes in February. The rookies have been moved to the bench, particularly Jeremiah Fears. And his change has been significant. But you're getting great production out of Bryce McGowens. You're getting great production until he got injured out of Yves Missi. You're getting great production out of even Jordan Poole has been much better in February as far as his on-court production, even if his shooting numbers have still not been great. His presence has not been a negative. It's been actually a positive. Carlo has been good off the bench in February. You look at this team, you only got 3 guys who are shooting above 35% from 3. 2 of them are on your bench. One of them named Bryce McGowens, the other one named Carlo Makovich. Your bench has been a catalyst for improvement in February. So you have to give the coaching staff some credit there in figuring it out. When people say the Pelicans, the bench is still very young, right? The guys on this bench are still very young. Missi second year, Queen first year, Fears first year. McGowan's still third year? Peavy first year. So your bench is incredibly young, but you're getting the best production out of them that you have all season, and your team is reaping the benefits of that. The Pelicans have been a top 5 bench throughout February, and that is directly impacting winning. And I think you have to give James Borrego a lot of credit for that. We talk about Jeremiah Fears. I said, he's had a great bench February. When you look at this, his points are down, sure. His field goal percentage, down. But his three-point percentage ain't great. His free throw percentage, sure. But look at where his ability to be a point guard has improved. He's rebounding a little better. The minutes are about the same, so the minute comparison is fair. But the assists are up more than 1 assist per game. The steals are about the same. The turnovers are about the same. But look at this plus minus, the swing there. For the season, he's been a negative 4.4. In February, he is a positive 3.4. That is a swing of 7.8, nearly 8 points for Jeremiah Fears this month. That's the kind of improvement that the Pelicans wanted to see out of him. That's why I thought at the beginning of the season, Jeremiah should have been coming off the bench. And I think that it was just much better of a decision to get the rookies back on the bench. They did not earn the starts. They had to start out of necessity early. Okay, so you have stabilized your team by putting competence, not greatness. DeAndre Jordan isn't great. Dejounte Murray isn't great. But they have been competent, and that competence has improved the starting lineup, so you're not falling behind early in games as you had been. The Pelicans were digging themselves into holes. You are allowing your rookies to find their way, to watch the game, and to play more against second unit players who they should be facing. And you are at the point of the season where other teams are playing more non-rotation players as they get ready for the playoffs or not making the playoffs. So this is an opportunity for your reserves to get significantly better playing against talent that is more comparable to where they are. This is their chance to build on success. The question for this group, Jeremiah Fear seems to have taken to that. He seems to have embraced his role. Derek Queen, it is a real concern at this point how bad he is defensively. It is a real, he is, you cannot put him on the court right now. The difference between him and DeAndre Jordan, the difference between him and anybody else, the difference between him and putting a broomstick in the center of the Pelicans defense, he has been so bad defensively. And you can say that James Borrego's not allowing him to develop on the offensive end by not giving, but he's got to earn those minutes. And the Pelicans have made this mistake with young players in the past. Players have made this mistake with young players in the past of not allowing them to get better. We can't compare Zion and Queen at all. Zion came in as a historically elite scorer and athlete. Derek Queen is neither one of those things. He may be a very good player going forward, but Derek Queen's offense is no longer giving you the defense, making up for his bad defense. His defense is so bad that there's nothing he can do offensively to make up for it, and he's not doing much offensively as of late. That's the difference. You can't just be like, well, somebody else. You have to make a difference in some way, and he's not making a difference. And people, this mistaken belief that Nikola Jokic was a bad defender when he got into the league, go look it up. The Nuggets have consistently have been better, significantly better when Jokic is on the floor defensively. That has not been the case with Queen. You could go back to his rookie year, and the Nuggets were consistently better defensively when Jokic was on the floor. And what I did not say young Queen is young. I said that there are skills. I don't know about Derek Queen. And I would say this right now. If there is a major trade this offseason, if the Pelicans decide, they have to decide if Queen and Zion are going to play together or if they can play together. I don't think Queen is going anywhere soon, but I think that that's going to be a discussion this offseason, is what to do with the two of them and how do you stagger them and what works together, because they can't play together. They cannot play together. The Pelicans are embarrassingly bad when those two play minutes together. But wasn't the point of all this. The point of this is that the bench has been much better. The point of this is that James Borrego, at the very least, has continued to work with this lineup. Has worked with this lineup to find how to optimize it. And that's all you can ask for. For a team that's been this bad this season, you have at least figured out how to optimize what you have going into the most important stretch of the season. If that continues, the Pelicans are really going to have a difficult decision to make when it comes to Borrego's future. It's not going to be so simple to just look at this and say we need a high-priced coach. And I've talked about those reasons, and I'm not going to get into those ad nauseum again. But overall, just to summarize what we've had today, I think the Pelicans can sustain this for a while. These next 22 games, I think they have a legitimate chance of winning 15 of these final 22 games. I think they do. I think they can go 4-1 on this road trip. I think they can win 8 of their next 10 games. I think that is a real possibility. And if they do that, they will put themselves in position to have a chance. But these next 10 games are the ones. You've got to close this road trip really strongly, and then you've got to do a great job in those next 5 games before it gets tough again. Before you have to go on the road to New York, Detroit, Toronto. But this is it. These 15 games now, that's really going to be it. And if the Pelicans can stack these wins against these bad teams that they have in the next 10 games, they have a shot. Saddiq Bey, again, this has been his month. February has been his month. Like, I didn't get, I forgot to show this earlier, but look at him in the clutch in February, just so much better. 3.5 points per game, 80% from the field, 50% from three, 100% at the line. He's just been incredibly impactful. And the Pelicans are going to have another tough decision with him. Do they extend him this offseason? Again, Dejounte, it's not about the points. He's scoring well. The offense is very good with him on the floor. It's just the bunches of turnovers. I'll give you the number really quickly. 4-10, the Pelicans, when they have more than 17 turnovers this season, and 4-10 all time when Dejounte has 4 or more turnovers. That is not saying it can't improve. It's saying it must improve. And there's a difference. It must improve. The Pelicans are not good when they turn over the basketball. They can't turn it over 17 times a game. They have gotten better because they stopped turning the basketball over. His curve in getting back into the kind of player that he was before he got to New Orleans, if that is on the table, how quickly that curve sharpens or flattens is the question. And I think that's a reasonable question. Whether it's 5 games or 10 games, it has to flatten. You can't do 5.5 turnovers a game. It can't be 4 a night. It's got to be a lot closer to his career average, which is right around 2.5. All right, y'all. Let's see. There were a couple of things I wanted to see. Do you think DQ passing has been down because of Borrego's use of the rookie wall? I think Borrego's used him fine. I think Derek has to be more aggressive, and he has to make himself. Like, I think the energy comes from the defensive end. We see that in basketball so many times. As if you're willing to be active defensively, the energy will find you on offense. And that's been his problem lately. The rest of the team has been much more active defensively. And I think that's why the Pelicans are still not shooting the ball great. But what we're seeing is the difference in the defensive side. And again, I don't know if it's lack of practice, and I don't know if it's playing in a year. I have no idea. I wish I knew. All I can say is that it has been a consistent problem since he got to New Orleans. I don't know why that has been the issue. There are a myriad of factors that at play, but I can't say how much each of them is at play. But it's something to monitor because it has impacted the Pelicans' win-loss percentage. They are better when they don't turn over the ball. That's just a fact. And it's not saying that he's the problem. They have been a problem. All right, y'all, that's going to do it. I appreciate everybody who tuned in. Make sure you hit that like button again before you go. We are not doing a show tomorrow because of the lateness of the game, but we will, I believe, be back on Sunday. So until then, you guys have a great one. This has been The Post Up with David Grubb right here on Boot Crew Media.